back, everybody, to In the Zone. Basketball land, Hooplandia, Pete Coles, Rich Sutter. We are in the zone, folks. Just recently wrapped up the NCAA basketball season. We're going to bring you all of that wrap up today. We've also got the NBA moving and grooving, moving towards playoff situations, and we've got some scenarios for you today. There are about somewhere between 2 and 3 games left per team in the NBA in the regular season. Sunday will conclude the regular season, and then we'll have a really firm idea about the play-in and then the playoff scenario that we'll set up. We'll be able to tell you now there's a couple of matchups that are written in stone, and there's a couple of them that are still out there, and there's a couple of scenarios, really wild scenarios, especially out in the wild west right now, where it is not completely settled. Although the Phoenix Suns, I think they're done now. I would have to look and check on my phone, but I think Phoenix was the last team trying to get in. They were hunting Dallas. Maybe Pete can find that for us during the show. But I think Dallas has locked it up, and I think Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns have been eliminated. Pete will be able to maybe grab that for us somewhere in the show, but that puts Dallas in. And there's still a little bit of stuff going on to see who winds up in the play-in game. And we're going to talk about some of this craziness that's going on with the NBA as far as their coaches are concerned. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. We start off with Pete's Corner. 3 bombs that Pete throws from deep in three-point land. He launches them my way, and we try and get going. And see, I'm just figuring out that this chair here doesn't have wheels, so I'm stuck in here. I'm trying to wheel in here, but I'm not getting any closer. Okay, so Pete.
I think you have wheels on that thing. You're probably just stuck on something.
Maybe they could be locked. They could be locked. All right, Pete, let's shoot.
First question. Why would you pay for this? Oh, no, wait. Just watch the whole clip.
That's nice.
This is a professional basketball game. For those of you watching, this is professional basketball.
Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls.
This is professional basketball.
This is absolutely unbelievable. And the tickets.
Why would you pay for that?
It costs a lot of money, too. You know, then you want to go and, you know, I've always been a huge fan of Bruce Springsteen. I've told people for years that I've seen him over 120 times. I don't know exactly how many it is anymore. That's how many times I've seen him. But in all 120 times that I've seen Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, they have never, ever come close to putting on a performance that looks as bad as an NBA game does right now.
Oh, it's brutal.
I always say to my team, what happens when the drummer stops drumming? NBA games, they got no drummer, no bass line. They just have they have cacophony right now. They don't have harmony. They have cacophony. And Pete brings it to us right there. I don't know why people, I mean, I guess it's still a fun thing to do with your kids. Still an activity to go, but I feel bad for some of these dads and moms out there that might have somebody who's on an AAU team. Every time you walk around to one of these gyms, somebody's in your pocket. Now you're going to say, okay, I want to, for a really nice surprise, go to the Celtic game with my son, and you had to give up your other son in order to make that happen. You had to give up your firstborn child in order to make that go.
To go to a pro sports game, of any pro sports game, for a family of 4, it's probably going to run you $200. Why would you pay to go to that? I mean, just going to a minor league game now, 2 people, $50 easily.
But $50 for a Boston Celtics ticket, and you'll be sitting in Cleveland.
But that's what I'm saying. If you're like, I can go to a playoff game.
You won't even be in the same state.
I can go to a playoff game for the Thunderbirds and drop $60 for 2 tickets. You can't even get a single seat for that. In most pro sports stadiums right
Then
now.
Throw in some of the nice gear that's in the place. When the kids go by and they want to get a Celtic jersey,
parking,
of their favorite player, parking, hot dogs.
My God, if you want to buy a concession, forget it.
Yeah, God forbid Dad might want to have a beer to take the stress of all the money he just lost off. That's another $14. It's amazing. It really is. And I haven't been to a pro basketball game in quite a long time. I go to quite a few college games, but I haven't been to a pro basketball game in a while. That's one of the reasons, I could probably even get the tickets for free. But all the other stuff is, going to Boston, turning around, coming out of there at 11 o'clock at night, and then having to get on the Pike another hour and a half down here. It's a lot. And then when you put in the cost, man, it really, for a family down here, it's almost prohibitive right now. Going to a Red Sox game, going to a Celtic game, it's almost prohibitive now cost-wise. You almost got to get the tickets from Grandma and Grandpa underneath the Christmas tree or something these days. It's hard. It's hard. But good question, Pete, and I don't know. I don't know why people are watching it, and I don't know why people are actually going to it. I'll turn on my TV and watch it, and I like watching it. It's fun, but, because I'm a basketball junkie, I got to watch something, But I don't know where they're at right now, and I don't know how it gets better. And my greatest fear is that the NCAA game is following right behind it.
Well, that was leading into my next question. Did March Madness live up to the hype this year? And the answer is probably no. And why not?
I think that it's always very hard for March Madness to live up to the hype. And here's what I want to lay out for the people right now. The hype, Cinderella, all of the things that we like about March Madness that makes it entertaining to us is bad for television. Because FDU doesn't travel with the same amount of people as Alabama. FDU can't fill a stadium full of people the way that Alabama can. So Cinderella is actually bad for business. That's why she was taken back to the dungeon. That's why it struck midnight this year. Because they wanted to have the teams that they're putting the most money into, the teams that they're paying the biggest contracts to, somehow represented in that Final Four. And they got exactly what they wanted when they had all four number ones show up in the Final Four, something that hasn't happened since Moby Dick was a minnow and Rin Tin Tin was a puppy.
Yeah,
Pete.
but doesn't Cinderella bring in the casual fans that you want to expand your game with?
It brings in the bracket. There were over 200 and something perfect Final Four brackets, 200,000 of them. You go to a normal year, somebody having a perfect bracket is an anomaly in the Final Four. It's crazy. Now all of a sudden you had 250,000 people in the country that picked it right because they picked all the number ones. It's where the step is, Pete. That's where the dance move is right now. It's corporate, it's big business, and they're going to give you not what you want. They're going to give you what they want. They're going to give you what they need in order to stay relevant, is what they think relevant. And they've done it with the NBA, and the NBA is a catastrophe right now. And if they continue to have their influence on college basketball the way that they have, they're going to have problems. They're going to have some significant problems. Another good one, though, Pete. Another good one.
Okay, and the third question is, you're a coach now with your season over. How long do you decompress or kind of like look back at your season? When do you turn the page and move on to your next season?
We turned the page when I was driving home from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
After we lost. Okay, it was a 5-hour, 6-hour car ride home. I probably called 40 recruits.
Wow.
On that way home. Yeah. It's a great time when you're in the car. It's a great time when you're in the car. You can just tell your car to call somebody and it dials it up for you and does all this stuff.
Yep.
So when you're in the car, it's a great time. And it also, you want to strike while the iron is hot. We came off an NCAA tournament bid this year. We were winning. We're doing good. You want to ride that as much as you can, and so you want to strike while the iron's hot. Speak to people in and around that as much as you can. But for me, one of the reasons I love Division III is that they've pretty much left us alone, the NCAA has. So in Division I, they have this heavily legislated calendar. When is a live period? When is not a live period? What is a live event? What is not a live event? Now, to explain for our fans, live means that college Division I coaches can be there. It's during their live evaluation period. A Division III coach live evaluation period for me is every day except for Christmas. We don't have that calendar, so I can go somewhere every single day without that restriction, and I love that. And it's one of the reasons that you become adept at seeing other players that you could never get, but you can recommend to other programs. So I'll talk to some of the coaches at UMass, at George Washington, St. Bonaventure, some of those mid-major programs, and even above, some of the UConn guys or stuff like that. When I see a really good player that I think maybe, that they're missing, or sometimes it's based upon need. We really need a point guard. We really need a big man. And so I've gone through and I keep notes, I journal it, I keep all the players that I think, and then I kind of assess a level to them myself. And then as I'm talking with coaches, they might say, we really need a big man, and I'd say, well, have you seen so-and-so? So for me, it doesn't really end, and I love that. I get to turn it on and off when I want. I get to decompress and do those things on my own time. It's one of the reasons that I love being a Division III coach. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. Now, if you're an assistant coach Division I, you're on the portal for 14 hours a day right now. You're going to go out and maybe watch them play during the live periods if you can. But also, at that very same moment, the next class of 26 and 27 are coming onto the page, and so you need to get into that as well. You need to start evaluating the players in that class as well. So a lot of it, I'm assuming for those guys, is done by computer now. They're watching games, they're watching clips. You might have something like Baller TV that, goes and does video of these games, and these guys can purchase that type of software and just sit at home and watch these games rather than actually be out on the road. Some of that has been done. But for me, you got to be in that gym and really get a feel for things, to watch them play live and see the reaction, see the body language, see all of that stuff up close, hear some things, that are going on.
Well, sometimes you got to realize whether it's the player or the system too.
Yeah. There's so much of that going on, Pete. That's a really good comment. So much of that going on. Like, a guy will go now where the biggest dollar is, right? But then he doesn't realize, well, I just went into the Big 12 where they're just grabbing and clutching and beating people up, and the scores are in the 50s and 60s. Well, that ain't my game. I'm not a clutch and grab guy. I'm a three-baller. I'm out on the perimeter. I need to get shots. I should have went to Alabama because that's all they do is shoot three balls. So those are the fits that you're talking about that are really. It's a two-lane highway right now, Pete. You got the fit, just what you're talking about, but it's also who's doing your evaluating for you right now, because that's key. You need to know they're all out there. There's 1 million messages in a bottle washed up on the shore, as the police said. But now you need to sift through those. And as I said to somebody the other day, the fact that there's more and more and more is now, just like when you teach jump shooting, if there's more and more in there, you've created more and more room for error, more and more room to make the wrong choice, because there's just so many choices right now. So for coaches and everybody else out there, you really need to find people you can trust. Find people who've been evaluating kids for a long, long time and can determine levels and can determine what's the best value to help you spend your money, because you guys ain't out here. You're not out here. I go into gyms all the time. You never see D1 guys in the gym anymore. You used to see them all the time. If it's during a live period, you might see them, but they're always at these really, really big events. I'll go to a workout where there's, just their own players in the gym. I'll go to a scrimmage. I'll go to one of their games. I want to see them play. That's what's missing, because you're going by metrics. And this is what I said to a couple of friends of mine the other day. The Joker, we love him. MVP candidate in the zone, for sure. We've named him MVP already, so our fans know. All right? The other day, he goes for 61 points.
Wow.
Somewhere in double-digit rebounds and somewhere in double-digit assists for a triple-double. Now, if you looked at that and said, wow, now they lost the game, which we often talk about here, those really high-end games often wind up in loss because the other four guys kind of get vaporized while they're just hanging around watching you score so much. But the thing is also now, he came out with a negative plus-minus ratio in that game. On his metrics, came out negative. I don't know what he did negatively to offset 61 points and double digits in assists and rebounds. I have no idea. But if you're one of those assistant coaches sitting at the computer right now and you look and you see he was negative and plus minus, you go, we don't want to sign the Joker. He had 61, but we don't want him because his plus minus was off. That's one of the best players in the game right now. So I don't know what these metrics go into. I have no idea what all entails in there. But if I would tell these coaches, you might want to put some of that on the other side and just go back to evaluating, calling people on the phone, getting as much information as you can. And when you're throwing millions of dollars around, you might want to think about some private investigators.
Yeah, exactly.
Just my own thought.
Yeah.
Pete, let's slide into the Power 15. There it is, Pete, a thing of beauty. OKC sitting up top with 65-14. They'll keep the number one seed all the way through the West. It's not even close. It was 14 and a half games. I think it'll settle out somewhere in the 12, 13 game range with the next closest opponent behind them by 12 or 13 games.
Crazy.
A great year for OKC
Yeah.
Thunder. They will go in the Western Conference in the number one spot. Cleveland Cavaliers, 63-16. Again, these two teams, OKC not as much, but to the level that they rose, yes. But just having the Cavaliers in this number one spot in the Eastern Conference is certainly surprising and really, really good for the league, I think. And what it does portend is that it's really difficult to go back-to-back in the NBA. The Nuggets had trouble with it. The Celtics are having trouble with it. The Celtics aren't finished yet, but there they sit in the three-hole, 59-20. And I don't think if you counted all their playoff games last year that they had lost 20 games total. They are an absolute mash unit. Hopefully they can get it all reconfigured by the time the playoffs come. I've said this. I'll say it again. Them and the Knicks had a monster game the other night. Ended up in overtime with the Celtics being victorious, but that could wind up being an Eastern Conference boondoggle. That could be a real battle, a royale. And that's what I want to keep an eye on. But you never know. The Cavaliers are tough, and one of those teams is going to have to go through them and see if they can get out. But the Knicks are in the 5th spot with the Rockets in the 4th spot. The Rockets reinvigorated again. They've been up, they've been down, but right back now. For them to be in the number 2 spot in the Western Conference, I don't think anybody was calling that in the beginning of the year. They'll get a good home site for the playoffs, and they'll wind up playing one of the play-in game people, which is always helpful because they will go through a little bit of a series right there in that play-in, tire them out. They may catch an injury or two in there. What you don't hope is that the team catches fire in that play-in playoff. They win, and then they get hot, and then they're coming at you when you've been sitting there waiting. New York Knicks, 50-29. Love my Knicks, but they got some issues there with that team. I think there's some chemistry issues, but it's also just I'm not sure that they have everybody that can dial in on the defensive end when they need to, and that's been a problem for them. Indiana Pacers, 48-31. Really, really solid in that 6th spot now. They were 7, 8, 9 a lot of the year, but they're rising. They're really, really solid team, and that's going to be a problem for somebody in the playoffs. The Lakers and the Clippers back-to-back right there. You love to see that. 48-31, 47-32. Congrats to James Harden and that crew. Really, really good effort this year. The Lakers, they brought Luka, and now they're rising. I'd say the Lakers probably of the top 15 that we've looked at all year long, the Lakers probably have the most buoyancy right now. They will, unfortunately, right now as it looks, if it goes this way, they're going to get a first round with the Golden State Warriors, though, and it might not be good for them. The Los Angeles Clippers playing hard with James Harden. The Nuggets, 47-32. Pete, we're going to talk about this later in the show, but they fired their coach with 4 games left in the season. Fired their general manager.
Seriously?
With 4 games left in the season, the Denver Nuggets. My guy, Michael Malone from New York, his dad was a great guy, been with the organization for 10 years. We're going to talk about it later in the show, but boom, there it goes. Memphis Grizzlies in the 10th spot. Minnesota Timberwolves, 46-33. I thought they'd be a little higher than that. the Bucks, Doc Rivers, you get what you get. Fired more times than a Civil War cannon. He's not going to come in and save the day, folks. 45-34 with one of the best players in the entire world on that roster. Detroit Pistons, another really, really surprise team. They were DFL last year in the NBA, the absolute worst franchise in the exact NBA, and here they are. They're banging in the playoff door right now, and I love it. Orlando Magic, 39-40, and the Sacramento Kings, 39-40. Pete, my Power 15 is sliding into the abyss because now I have to include two teams with sub-500 records in the Power 15 in the NBA. Oh, my God, does that stink. All right, let's go some baselines because we just talked about it. We'll jump into that real quick. Michael Malone fired by the Nuggets with essentially 3 games remaining, and then the Nuggets are all set to make the playoffs. They're sliding right now. They've lost 4 in a row. They're sliding. That's not anything in the NBA. Certainly not a reason to fire anybody, but I guess the acrimony between himself and the general manager had gotten to a level that was unsustainable, and I guess they didn't want to wait till the end of the year. I really, really am shaking my head at this one, though.
Why would you do that, though, with a team making the playoffs? You fire your coach.
They're in the playoffs, and 2 years removed, Pete, from the national championship. Denver Nuggets 2 years ago, before the Celtics won it, the Nuggets won it. So I don't know if he lost his fastball, but they fired general manager Calvin Booth as well. David Adelman will take over for the rest of the season. Tough spot for him to be in, but it gives him a chance to prove it. They are 47-32, Pete. They're ranked 5th in the Western Conference and number 9 in the zone Power 15. And then they're firing a coach right before they walk into the playoffs. In 10 seasons, Mike Malone, 471 and 327. That's a great NBA record, folks. That's a great NBA record. We're pretty sure that Michael Malone will be found and scooped up pretty quickly by another NBA team. But I just don't get it. I really don't get it. That close to the end of the season, I really, really,
Yeah, why wouldn't you wait?
You could, right? What would it hurt?
Like, why wouldn't you wait? you're gonna have to pay the guy anyways. Why didn't you just wait? The players, could it be the players hate him that much?
You got the Joker there. There's not a whole lot else going on out there that's positive. They're talking about maybe him moving. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things right now where in this small market, really hard to sustain anything. And if you look back historically, Michael Malone's 10-year run by NBA standards is histrionic. And so now, at times they just want to make changes, and I get it. It's a business. I get it. But boy, that just the timing of it all. It's like nobody seems to get timing these days anymore. Open the portal right in the middle of the NCAA tournament. Don't worry about the timing. Let coaches fly in and out while they're getting their teams ready for NCAA play. They're taking another job and talking to the other AD about their contract stuff. The timing, nobody seems to get that anymore. All right, Pete, let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. In the NBA, you got some hot, some not hot. God rest his soul, our man Buster Poindexter. All right, so we got the Pacers, the Bucks, both won 5 in a row. The Clippers have won 4 in a row. And our friends, the Magic, have won 4 in a row. Celtics playing really good basketball right now, although their streak got busted. The Hornets have lost 5. Nuggets have lost 4. Jazz have lost 9, and the Suns have lost 7, sliding into the abyss. The Suns, they had a chance at the playoffs and absolutely gassed themselves at the bottom half of that year. Right now you have in the Eastern Conference play-in. This could change, folks, because a lot of people are really bumped up here. What cannot change are the 4 teams that we're going to talk about, but what could change is the matchup, because if there's 3 games left and something shifts and the plate tectonics move, you could wind up with different teams playing different people, but this is where it stands right now. You've got Orlando going up against Miami. Orlando has the Celtics, the Pacers, and the Hawks left. We'll give people a chance to figure it out. Who do you think has got the best road forward? Miami has Chicago. The Pelicans and the Wizards looks pretty good from Miami there, but can they rise, get ahead? They might. You don't know. They're right there bumped up against the Chicago Bulls, so we'll see. Atlanta and Chicago will be the other play-in game for the Eastern Conference. You will wind up Chicago. Atlanta has Brooklyn this is Atlanta, has Brooklyn, the 76ers, and the Orlando Magic. And Chicago has Miami, the Wizards, and the 76ers. Not really heavy lifting for either one of those teams going down the stretch. It could come down to 1 or 2 games here to see if there's any shift. And we'll talk about where that shift could occur in a moment. Now in the West, you've got Memphis going up against Dallas right now. Memphis has Minnesota, Denver, and the Mavericks left. Tough slate. And the Dallas Mavericks, they have the Lakers, and they played them last night, the Raptors, and the Grizz left for Dallas. Memphis, Dallas could be a good one. Minnesota, Sacramento, this could change also. This could change because there are teams like the Nuggets that might slide into the play-in in the West. There is no chance that anybody in the East is sliding into the play-in. Everybody's locked in there. But there is a chance in the West that somebody could still slide in, and that's not good. I think the Nuggets will be fine, though. But you've got Memphis, Dallas, and Minnesota, Sacramento. Minnesota has Memphis, Brooklyn, and the Jazz left. Not really heavy lifting there. And Sacramento claims the Nuggets, Clippers, and Suns. All right, so now we move on. We're going to have that play-in. You're going to have survivors. What happens to the survivors? In the East, the survivor of Orlando and Miami will get the Cleveland Cavaliers, with Cleveland having home court advantage. Celtics, right now, locked into either Atlanta or Chicago. Atlanta's given them a hard time during the year. That would be a tough matchup a little bit for the Celtics, but they should be victorious over either one of those teams. Right over here, you got the Knicks and the Pistons pretty much locked in. That's pretty much a go. And the Bucks and the Pacers are going to be locked in as well. Pretty much a go there. So you're going to see the East doesn't have a whole lot of movement going on right now, but in the West, there could be a whole lot of shaking going on, and we'll talk about it right now. West, OKC gets the winner of Memphis, Dallas. That'll be a tough one if it's Memphis. If it's Dallas, I think they'll be okay. Now you go to Houston, they get the Minnesota-Sacramento winner. Neither one of those games is great for Houston. That could be an upset city right there. Los Angeles Lakers right now are bumped up against the Golden State Warriors. That's going to be bad for the Lakers, I can assure you that, if it stays that way. Clippers going up against the Nuggets, and that could be a good one too. We'll see what happens to the Nuggets to see if they slide into the play-in game, and we'll keep you posted. Out of the playoffs, OOP. Yeah, you know me. You're OOP, baby. Now you got the Raptors, the Nets, the 76ers, the biggest OOP surprise of the year. And you got the Hornets and the Wizards. See you later, fellas. Start preparing for the NBA lottery draft. All right, the West, you got the Jazz, the Pelicans, the Spurs, the Blazers. I think the Suns, as of late last night, were still alive, but I'm pretty sure they ain't going to make it. All right? The Suns are the only current outlier. They have the Thunder last night. I think they lost that game. I'm pretty sure they lost that game. That would put them out for good. Spurs and the Kings after that, which could be 2 meaningless games. The Suns have lost 7 straight games in a row, putting them on the skids. That one last night would have made 8.
The Suns lost to the Thunder 125-112.
The sun has set in Phoenix. Kevin Durant, the Suns, rest in peace. They did not make the playoffs. They lost 8 straight games coming down the end. Doesn't look like they wanted to make the playoffs. Here's some of that baseline playoff stuff that we promised you. Orlando leads Atlanta by 2 games and #1 playoff spot. Okay, so they got a 2-game lead. Pretty safe with only 3 remaining, but you never know. Atlanta, Chicago, and Miami are all within 1 game of each other in the East. That's some of the plate tectonics that we told you. Keep an eye on. Memphis has 1-game lead over Minnesota with 3 to play. Easily could see some shifting there. Dallas has been 1 game from eliminating the Phoenix Suns. Pete just informs us that the Dallas Mavericks will take the 10 spot in the Western Conference, and the Kings have a 1-game lead over for the never 7th spot, and both safe in the playoffs, but there's going to be some battle for that. Denver, Golden State, and Memphis are in a little bit of a tuggle, but all good to go. All right, Pete, we're going to slide right into the NCAA, and the question that you asked, I went out and said it went back to my old French from my high school, said that the tournament lacked for a certain je ne sais quoi. It didn't have that usual feel. Didn't have any real upsets that you could shake a stick at. And really, there were very few buzzer beaters where the game came down to the very end, although very, very close games here. You know, you look at the way some of the games were decided at the end, they were decided by ineptitude more than they were decided by really, really good stuff. 4 turnovers in a row in the final game. You know, Houston against Florida going down the stretch there. 4 turnovers in a row. Doesn't really reek of March Madness, you know, playing your best ball at the end, you come down and turn it over 4 times in a row. Let's start in the Final Four, though, Pete. All right? There we had Florida and Auburn in the matchup. SEC, big boy matchup. They had played during the year. Florida emerged victorious. This was a game right here. I'll be honest with you. This was the game I thought in the tournament. I watched a lot of them. I'll give you 2 games I thought that were very, very good basketball games to watch. For me, had enough excitement in it, but there was really no drama in it. But I thought the UConn-Florida game was really, really good game. UConn commanded the game for the first 35 minutes of the game. Walter Clayton and the Florida team kicked on and took the game from them late. Same thing kind of happened here, but this game right here, the Florida-Auburn game is the other game I'm alluding to as the 2 games in the tournament that I thought were great. Florida being involved in both of them with UConn and Auburn. This game, to me, had to feel like a heavyweight fight to it. It had to feel like a boxing match to it when it first started. 2 real heavyweight teams going at it, bouncing back and forth. Kind of, it almost seemed at first they were feeling each other out, you know, kind of knowing a little bit about each other, but still trying to feel out where the game was going to go, what type of tempo it was going to have, and it really did have a great feel to it. Walter Clayton Jr. saved the day, 34 points, 5 of 8 from three-point range. He had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and he has absolutely got a name of Mr. Clutch going right now. He is absolutely prime time at the end of the game. We'll talk about what happened in the final a little bit later, where he didn't play as well, but there's a lot of credit to go to Coach Sampson and his defense for that. Elijah Martin, Pete, I sent you a clip. Let's see if we got the clip that I sent you. Because this is, in basketball, sometimes it can be very, very close game, and then there's something that's going to turn it around. Elijah Martin turns it right here.
Martin with a signature slam. Against it. Knocked away by Chinyelu. Pettiford never got the shot off. Martin. Martin with a signature slam. Sent it in. Big fella. What a challenge at the rim.
Out punch to it. And again, it's a game of inches. It's always been and always will be a game of inches. And right there, that was the inch that really knocked it out. It was an unbelievable matchup, and I think the SEC fared very well this year in the tournament, although the amount of teams that they had allotted to this tournament was flat out ridiculous. And that's where you didn't even let Cinderella come out and go to the ball. You took them out before that even occurred. Yeah. When you put in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Georgia, and all of those bottom feeder SEC teams that ran with a 3.33 percentage in the league, used to be able to not get in the tournament at large if you weren't 500. Don't know what happened to that. But, Pete, let's go to Houston Duke. Oh, this was another really good game. But, again, back and forth, a little bounce to it. But Duke, most of the day, I mean, they're going to talk about this for a while, but let's just get real, folks. You don't really know until it happens to you. And if you've been on the sidelines, and I can tell you there's been 5, 6, 7 times I've been on the sidelines that it happened to me. 20-point lead doesn't mean anything with the three-point shot anymore. You got a lead with 6 minutes to go and you're up 9, so what? That means nothing. You're up by 6 with 2 minutes to go, like Duke was. The evidence is right here. It didn't mean a thing. It didn't mean a thing. No lead is safe. And Houston, I got to give Coach Sampson credit because he took on a strategy that most coaches wouldn't employ. I think I probably would have done the same thing in his shoes, but most coaches are going to start fouling in that scenario. And he told his guys, they call them kills. And what they mean is you got to come down and stop them from scoring 3 or 4 times in a row. We need a kill right here where we shut them off. We kill them, and they don't score anymore. And right then they went into kill mode and said, we're going to play it, and we're going to trust our defense. Had they started fouling, they lose the game, I believe.
Yeah.
They went and they fought it out, down by 9, down by 6, kept coming. Team showed unbelievable resiliency. Duke played very, very well as well. Cooper Flagg, everybody talking about him, the foul. He came over the back of the other guy. Now, everybody's saying, is this a foul? Is it not a foul? I'm not sure, Bottom line is, you're up by 1 point there. You can't go nowhere near that guy. You should have been nowhere near him. There was contact. There was a chance for the ref to insert him. But as a really, really smart play on that moment, you back away. You're up by 1 point, and there's only seconds left in the game. You don't allow the ref to insert himself there. Was it a foul? Was it not a foul? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. Houston, again, they played the gambler, and they won. L.J. Cryer, 26 points, 6 of 9 from three-point range, and he willed that team to victory. Juwan Roberts, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and he was Mr. Lockdown. He went in the defense when they needed stops. He was Mr. Lockdown. Unbelievable. Flagg went for 27, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. We're going to figure this out because he's 3 for 4 from three-point range. Going to figure this out in the next couple of weeks. Is he the number one, Pete? Is he the number one? We got to figure it out. It was a game winner that Flagg had in his hands, came up a little short. Con Nepal, very, very solid year for the Duke Blue Devils. I would have him in the first round if he wanted to go in the zone. 16 points, 7 rebounds. All right, let's go to the final, Pete. The final, Florida versus Houston. And this was a very, very good basketball game. Florida had a little bit of a run early. Houston came out cold. Couldn't shoot well. Neither team shot well. But Houston seemed to rely on the three ball very, very early in the game and started the game 0 for 8 from three-point range. Wow. It didn't help them. They got going a little bit and got moving, but then all of a sudden the whistle started blowing. Florida wound up on the line a lot. Will Richard, 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists. L.J. Cryer, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and he was 4-11 from three-point range. Houston was 6 of 25 from three-point range. Cryer had 4 of them. So only 2 other three-point shots for your entire team that night, and that was telling, I thought. The turnovers in the final 4 possessions of the game, their point guard had a rough go there. He lost the ball a couple of times. At one point, they don't even get off a shot. I'm not going to put a lot of blame on the young man who wound up turning it over a couple of times, but I'm going to put a little heat on the coaching staff there because I watched those 4 possessions, and I didn't think you guys had a real good design there for this young man to operate in. You broke down all 4 times and allowed Florida to get back in the game by doing that. They had 4 really, this is what I say all the time, Pete. You got these coaches who make all of this money. You get evaluated on a very few possessions at the end of that game. Mm-hmm. And right there, I'm evaluating those very few possessions at the end of that game. It didn't go well. It didn't go well. The play calling, the efficiency down at the end there, I want to see it really, really. You're in a national championship game. I want to see it all, like a Swiss clock. You may not make the shot. You may not, get where you want to get. You may not win the game, but, man, you got to get a better look than that. You got to get some guys open. You got to set screens, and you got to run some stuff that's going to get your best player, whoever's, at that time it was L.J. Cryer. You got to get him open. You got to get him looks. Didn't happen. But good game, 65-63. That's the type of game that's going to run people out of the building, though. All right? This is the new norm for college coaches. I've even heard a coach say, well, we want to get this game down into the 50s. You know who doesn't want the game in the 50s? The fans. And fans want to watch a little bit more wide open basketball, folks. And a lot of these coaches just aren't getting it. And it's a trust issue. And the coaches also control issue. They want to have control over it. I get it. But the trust comes when you allow your team to have some control as well. And that, I think, is missing. When you see a final game, 65-63, grinding, 0 for 8 to start from three-point range, that's not that good a game. Now, you got all of these guys out there all at once. They jump up and sing Kumbaya at the same time. What a great tournament. Oh, my God, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't. Now, you got all these guys like Fanta, Rothstein, all these other guys out there, Goodman. Oh, it was a great tournament. Why don't you tell the people that you're part of saying it's a great tournament, because it being a great tournament puts money in your pocket? I mean, let's be honest about that. You know, we're not getting paid here. I don't have to sit here and tell you because I'm an NCAA affiliate. You know, it wasn't very good. The tournament wasn't good. And to say that it was is even worse, because it's cognitively dissonant for people who watched it. Everybody's jumping up and down, and people know who those guys are. You know, just let it stew for a little bit. You know, like, for example, like three of these guys have a way too early top 25 out right now. You think it's a way too early? Take a breath. Go to Florida. Sit by the pool. Calm down. You got portal going on. How do you know anything? Indiana has no players on their roster right now. They're going to go fill them in. They're going to go buy some. They're going to go shopping at Kmart. And then they're going to fill them in. But you don't know what they have. You don't even know what anybody has right now. But we got way too early top 25. Fellas, take a breath. It'll be okay if there's a few days without college basketball. Portal potty, Pete. Portal potty. We are in full, and I say full, portal potty swing. There it is. That's my favorite metric that we've ever put up. My favorite that we've ever put up.
By the way, the women's tournament wasn't much better because you had 3 number ones. Oh, and there was an upset. Oh, no, wait, it was number 2 wins the entire tournament.
All right. You want to talk about that for 1 second? Let's do it. All right.
And there was, watch the game. That game, you talk about a 20-point lead not being in jeopardy. That team, that UConn team, that game was never in jeopardy. Either that or South Carolina gave up.
I got
I watched that game.
Somebody asked me, it's in my favorite restaurant, having dinner. Somebody asked me, you going to watch the game, Coach? I said, I usually don't. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on women's basketball. I spend most of the time that I have on men's basketball. And they were offended. They were very upset that I wouldn't go and cheer on the UConn Huskies and the South Carolina. I don't even know what they call the South Carolina. The Lady Gamecocks, I assume. Doesn't sound great to me, but hey, weren't Gamecocks used for fighting also down there? I thought so. Okay, so I got guilted into it. I was home, and I didn't want to go back to the restaurant and not say that I hadn't watched it.
Yep.
So I took a look. It was a blowout.
Yeah.
It was an absolute blowout.
I watched it.
Wasn't a
part
close
of the
game.
first half because I didn't know the game was on, and then I watched all of the second half.
But Pete,
and it wasn't in doubt.
Pete, I'm going to give you a reverse Pete's corner.
Okay.
Because this is a TV question, and maybe you can answer this because I was wondering about this. How the heck do they know what everybody's TV channel is? Like because they're going. Last year with Caitlin Clark, we had 10 million viewers, and this year it went way down to 3 point. I mean, they had an unbelievable drop-off from viewers. So how do they measure that, though? Is it done by a poll? Is it done by a...
Nowadays, everybody has cable. So they monitor. They don't tell you this, but your cable box now is smart enough to know what channel you're on.
And reports back to them?
Yep.
Wow.
Reports back to the cable company.
That's creepy.
Which reports it to Nielsen.
Okay. Regardless of how they get it and collect it, they had a huge drop-off in watch pretending. You know,
well, again, people like stories. There's no story. You're getting more of a story.
Clark.
You're getting more of a story for WrestleMania this weekend with John Cena turning heel than you got out of any of the NCAA tournament this year. Yeah. There's no storytelling.
I agree, Pete. I agree 100%. All right, so let's jump into the portal potty. We're in day 18 currently right now, something like that. All right? You're in day 18. You've got 1,680 plus people in the portal, and it's going ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. It's like the national debt if you watch it. It just keeps on going up and up and up. And really, I think there's some strategies that are being played here as well about when to go in the portal, when's the most opportune time. Do you let the first wave go? Because right now, you're looking, Pete, believe it or not, of these 1,600 that are D1 guys right now, like in 3 weeks, 70% of them are signed with a new school.
Yeah.
You have,
last week, 6 out of 10 were already signed. 6 out of the top 10.
Right. So now we're up to 70%. But here you go. You get 3 official visits extra when you go in the portal. You can take 3 official visits. None of that is occurring, which leads me back to our other point last week, Pete. They got to be grabbing these kids way, way, way before the portal even opens. Those lines of communication, although I think it's illegal, still wide open.
Yeah.
All right? Prior contact is apparent. It has to be happening for it to go this quickly, especially when you're talking about contractual terms. How much money? You know, how long do you plan on staying? How many years of eligibility do you have left? So those things are all factored in. I love this part, Pete. You can go in to the portal and put up a no contact sign. It's a do not disturb sign for the portal. So right out there on the portal potty, you hang your little, like when you're in the Marriott, and you hang out your little do not disturb sign. You go into the portal for what reason?
Yeah, what's the point?
To be contacted.
Right.
When you go in there and you say, I'd have a no contact on me, and I signed 3 days later, you have to talk to somebody. You must have been speaking to someone. And I bet it was taking place a long, long way before that door opened. All right, let's go back to our previous thing too, Pete. The portal, folks, for all you young guys, for all of you guys that are in that aren't in that top 5% of portal guys that everybody wants, and you're in the portal trying to make a better day for yourself, I get it. But here's what we say on In the Zone, folks. It's not a door. It's an elevator. And you can ride it up, and you can ride it down. And there's many dudes going down than there are going up. I can assure you.
Yeah.
I can assure you that. 36 of the 50 have announced, the top 50 announced their commitment within 50 days at warp speed. Okay. Reluctant a little bit to talk about this, but people are going to want to know a little bit. Who are the portal potty pirates of the year right now? Last week, we gave Walter Clayton our Portal Potty Pirate Award for the year. Love Walter Clayton, too. But transferred from Iona all the way up to Florida, made good for himself. God bless, but it's not good for the game. All right, so 36 out of the 50 already off the table. Out of the top 100, there's about 70 that are currently off the table. Pete's numbers last week of 60% were 100% right on.
That was the top 10. There were
And
6 out of the top 10.
They're just increasing and going.
Good Lord.
Who are the portal winners so far? All right. Michigan. They must have a boatload of dough over there because they got guys coming left and right, and it's fast. Yaxel Landenberg from UAB, the number 1 in the portal, going to Michigan. Ade Mara, I love this one. 7'3". He was out at UCLA. I don't think they used him right at UCLA. He's going to be the new Vlad Golden. Morez Johnson Jr. from Illinois, number 10. Intra-league, on-league violence, no problem. We're taking from the Big Ten. We'll take them from anywhere. And Elliot Cadeau from North Carolina to Michigan. I'm going to tell the boys out in Michigan, I don't like that one. I'll give you the other 3. I don't like that one. St. John's has absolutely, and when I mean absolutely, been on fire. Now you know why they said goodbye to R.J. Lewis as easily as they did. Jason Sannon, he went to Vermont Academy here locally, signed with Bobby Hurley, Arizona State, 1 year, coming back to play for St. John's. He is an absolute stud. And I don't know where they got all these other guys with Yaxel Landenberg and all these other guys. I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of people in this portal better than Jason Sannon. They're getting Bryce Hopkins from Providence. And if St. John's, I'm going to put it out here right now, folks, if St. John's signs Ian Jackson, Bronx young man, Cardinal Hayes product, from North Carolina, if they sign him, it's on. It's on. Big East, it's on. You're going to be looking at St. John's returning the group that they're returning, and what else they got coming in right now, you're going to be looking at top 5, folks. You're going to be looking at a top 5 program. North Carolina's been in the, they lost Cadeau and they lost Ian Jackson. That was a huge one to lose him. But they bring in Jonathan Powell and Henry Vizar from Arizona. Vizar is a monster. Huge. 7-footer, big, runs the floor, pretty good. Louisville, that guy Kelsey, I don't think he sleeps. That guy makes caffeine nervous. He's up. He's ready to go. Boom, 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 right out of the portal. Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely, and Adrian Woolley from Kennesaw State. Conwell from Xavier, McNeely from Virginia. They can shoot the lights out. Unbelievable. 31 of the top 100 players are available. 69 have committed. Unbelievable. Pete, I hate to do it, but we're going to talk about this house case that's going on right now. This is somewhere in the courts. They're trying to get some NIL grab on this thing. They have a judge, Wilkin, and I don't really think that it's going to have much of a determination out of this that's going to be earth-shattering in any way. Okay? The NCAA attorney stated that under these guidelines now, and this is where it's going to go. This is where it's going to go. Schools can now just arbitrarily just cut somebody. Middle of the year. If we're paying them, we get to cut them. It's just like an employee.
It's a pro
who's getting
league.
paid, and you don't take care of your business. Now all of a sudden, and the worst thing that's going to happen here is you're going to wind up cutting guys here in the NBA. They got guaranteed contracts. None of these contracts are guaranteed. They cut somebody, see you later, we'll pay somebody else tomorrow.
Wait till the first kid sues.
Here's what's occurring, though.
Seriously.
Okay, but here's what's occurring. You have rookies in the NBA, when they get drafted, they're slotted into a salary slot. So number 1 gets this, number 2 gets that, number 3, and it's not really that variable. So I don't know why sometimes these young men even hire agents, okay? But now you're going to say you get $3.4 million, let's say on your first contract. 19, 20 million over 3 years, 4 years. You're getting $4 or $5 million a year. Now you can pick that up in college. And in college, you only have to play 35 games to pick up your $4 million, as opposed to 82 plus almost 100 games in the NBA. And so now you have a situation where you're going to work half the amount of time and get paid the same amount of money. You're going to have these guys sticking around forever. Now all the early entries into the NBA draft, it's gone away now. You're going to see all these guys that are going. Asa Newell just declared he's going in, but JT Toppin from New Mexico says he's coming back. 18-9, first-team All-American, and he's returning to college. Tell me, when was the last time that happened? Okay.
I wonder why.
Pete, you're going to love this one. Yeah, there it goes. Pete, you're going to love this, though. When they asked in the trial, in the courtroom, about SEC revenue base, the judge says, what does the Securities Exchange Commission have to do with this? True. And they had to explain that it was the Southeastern Conference, not the SEC that everybody fears so greatly in their life. But I thought that was unbelievable. In the tournament, Big 12 went 14-7. SEC 23-13. That's a lot of games. Big 10 13-8. Now you want to feel the pressure now, because each one of those games right there, you go 14-7. You got 21 games. You got 21 pay units from the NCAA to the school. Now you're going to go into the SEC, the big boys. Okay. Now you got 36 payable units. Think about it. 21, 36. Here's where it's going to get interesting. Here's where it's going to get interesting, though. Big 10, 21 payable units. Those are the big football schools right there. Okay? Here's the people who didn't jump into the football game. ACC, 5-4. You're getting 9 units. Big East, 4 and 5. You're getting 9 units. Everybody says the Big East is going to have so much money. Not if this keeps up. Not if this keeps up. All right. In 3 SEC Big 12 tournament games, free throw totals. Big 12 shot 27 free throws. The SEC shot 70. And they were crowned national champions.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Again, SEC 70. 27. Those were matchup games. Donovan Dent, here's a good one for you, Pete. He's a great recruit that wound up playing for Richard Pitino at New Mexico. Now, Richard Pitino slid out the door and went to Xavier, so no real issue here, but this one's kind of cool, all right? It's a little bit ironic, all right? Here's the irony. He wants to go to UCLA when he's a young kid. That's his dream. Wants to go to UCLA. UCLA blows him off, gives him no attention. Goes to New Mexico, signs there. Now he's one of the best players in the country. Guess where he's going next year, Pete?
UCLA!
UCLA. It's been my dream my whole life, despite the fact that they rejected me. Portal plunder, going to UCLA. Okay, staying alive. You got JT Toppin going to Texas Tech. He's going to return. 18 points, 9 rebounds. The coaching staff down there, boy, they're celebrating. They're celebrating because now you're going into the portal. But again, go back and reference what I said before, Pete. All right? What do you think they're paying JT Toppin right now? Doesn't matter, really. But let's throw a number on it. You throw a number on it. Okay, so 1.5, let's say. $2 million. All right? So you got JT Toppin for $2 million. Now, you probably thought he was going to turn pro. But he decides to come back. Now, that $2 million has to get carried over into next year's salary base, and then you're signing other players. Where are you getting all this money from as those guys decide to stick around when at normal times they were gone? What if A.J. DeBonsa, who's getting $7 million, they say, although A.J. DeBonsa says he's not getting $7 million, but the number's very high, no question about that, you know. What about when they decide to just stick around for 4 years at $4 and $5 million per? What does that do to the rest of your budget? What does that do to your ability to sign other players? So now they're almost in this conundrum of having, you know, you want to keep guys around, but now you're trying to budget this whole thing and say, okay, for example, you're an A-10 team.
You better find a bigger bag.
You got to find a bigger bag, but, you know, you're an A-10 team. You're in for $1 million. You want to sign 4 guys every year at $250,000. No problem. Good deal. Good strategy. But when one of those guys decides to get a 5th year or a COVID year, and now instead of being around for X amount of years that you had planned for, they're around for that extra year, now you're going to see where this whole thing, and this is coming from people in the middle, and starting to come from some of the people on the bottom. I don't know why they haven't gotten into this first, but this is not sustainable.
But they just gave him the out. They can cut him at any time.
They can cut him at any time, and the out is your bag on the second street. So you got your revenue stream. You pay out your revenue stream. This is what people are saying. It's absolutely ludicrous, okay? Revenue stream. So $20 million is going to get split between all of the schools. If you don't have football, wow, you get to split that $20 million a whole different way. Big East schools get to split that $20 million a whole different way, right? Mm-hmm. Now you got football. They're only going to get 25%. The basketball program is only going to get 25% of that $20 million. Right? So that gives them $4 million. It gives a Big East team $7 million. Do you think John Calipari's not going out the back door for another $5 million? Mm-hmm. $10 million, whatever he needs? Of course he is. And that's where they created this thing where the bigs are never, ever, ever going to get beat to the dollar. They will never, ever get beat to a player again. And when they want your mid-major player, they're going to come get him. Yaxel Landenberg from UAB, you're with us now. You're over at Michigan. And if they want, they're just going to cut the guys that they have because they need to make room for the other guys coming in, especially if they get caught in the situation we just talked about, with somebody else returning, somebody else coming back. But here's the thing. In that whole 100, Pete, okay, all of the top 100 players that have signed, 15 of them can play at the top level. Max. 15. After that, it's the high price of mediocrity. Folks, we'll keep you tuned. We'll keep listening. But we wish we had better news for you because this thing is one step from the NBA right now, folks. But we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you informed. We're in the zone, folks, and we'll see you next Thursday.